To remain updated with the latest business news, click on the bell icon.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today. I'm Sakshi Batra, and on this show, I'm going to be discussing all about the big expectations that the taxpayers and the salaried class have from the upcoming budget 2022. The countdown has begun. So, what exactly is the government going to be bringing for the taxpayers and salaried class this time around? Is there going to be a big relief from the impact of the pandemic, from the rising expenses due to healthcare, and also the rising inflation? Joining in to help us with all the insights on this, I have a special expert joining in. I have with me Ms. Aarti Raote, partner Deloitte India on the show. Aarti, thank you so much for taking out time for us on Business Today.
Hey, Sakshi, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Aarti. So let me just kickstart by asking you, what exactly are we expecting this time around from the budget 2022? Is the government going to be bringing in big bang announcements in terms of relief for taxpayers or salary class, or the government purse strings are already too stretched? Your sense?
Well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Definitely, we're looking forward to some, announcements which give us relief. The past 2 years, Sakshi, have not been really good for the individual salaried class. They faced all kinds of pressures from all sides. And we really do hope that the government thinks about helping this, so-called salaried class who are, always at the receiving end from all sides, specifically because they suffer tax withholding at source and they have very few avenues to look at. So some of the things there, we are definitely expecting some kind of relief. And I think if you give me permit me, I will just go into what is the basic expectation. So one of the major expectations is some relief for medical. There is spiraling medical expenses. There is spiraling insurance costs. There is preventive care. All sorts of three things. Now, a couple of years back, the government did bring about standard deduction to kind of weed away the medical expenses and the whole kind of gray contours to that. That was the idea, but I don't think that's enough today. That was a different situation. Today is a different situation. So with spiraling medical expenses, the government really has to look at something really, really big. Especially in terms of medical insurance, they need to relook at the cost today and give some kind of additional benefits there. So definitely something around medical. The second area which the salaried class is really yearning for is work from home expenses. There is a whole lot of cost which they have to incur because they have a makeshift home office. It could be in terms of furniture. It could be in terms of electricity, broadband charges, any kind of things, computer peripherals, name it, you have it, right? In order to do your work efficiently, this is absolutely required. And to a certain extent, the employers have been generous. They have been providing some kind of allowance, but there is no clarity around what is the exemption that is available. So some employers are giving it as exempt. Some employers are actually taxing this allowance. So that's eating away into the allowance for the employees. So clarity around this, that is number one. And also some kind of a, deduction or exemption possible, then that's what the government should seriously look at, because to a certain extent, even if it is reimbursed by the employer, the employees are bearing a bit of it. So absolutely. I think the two areas which come, foremost into my mind.
Absolutely. So the government needs to look at the rising medical expenses for citizens, provide some relief there, and the increasing work from home culture, some allowance for this space as well in the upcoming budget. Let's hope the government really looks at these two spaces. Apart from this, a big ask always, before every budget is a rejig in the income tax rates or, slabs as well. Anything do you expect this time around on that front?
I think the government needs the revenue, and this has been an ask for almost 2-3 years. Even when the government did revisit the corporate tax rates, at that time also it was expected. In fact, for the individuals in the highest bracket, the surcharge is really, really steep. So it's to an extent very, very challenging for certain individuals. But to my mind, I think there is little that can be expected around that. If it happens, great. I'm happy, you are happy, but I don't think that may be possible.
Okay, okay. Also, a growing view is that the exemption under Section 80C is still at 1.5 lakh rupees. That was done back in the year 2014, almost 6, 7 years down the line. What's your expectation now? Should the government be really looking at, increasing this limit of 1.5 lakh rupees?
The government should seriously look at revisiting this. The ATC basket has a lot of things. It
Yeah.
has got investments, it has got PPF, it has got PF, which eats away a lot of part of that 1,50,000 kind of deduction. But there are
Yes.
other things which really have a steep cost today. One of
Mm-hmm.
the things which is there in this basket is the tuition fees for kids.
Yeah.
And if we see along with any of the fees that the parents are expending, there's a whole lot of things around computers and printers that the parents have to provide for the students. There is also a lot of challenge around keeping the kids occupied. So there are lots of these additional classes and tuitions that people enroll into. So
Yeah.
this, from the cost factor, it's really high for the along with the schooling cost for the parents. And
Mm.
I think maybe it's time to revisit. And there is a second aspect to this, Sakshi. Today, if I look at my salary structure and I look at where all can I save taxes, uh,
Yes.
I find it being very limited. For example, I
Mm.
had HRA earlier, but many of the people are working remotely from their second tier cities, so they may not be incurring that cost. They can't claim an exemption. There was a car benefit that was provided, but nobody's really traveling to office, so that is not something which can be looked at. In terms of other things like a leave travel assistance, last year the government did come out with a very good kind of a scheme which provided an avenue for people who wanted to make that choice. I would say you can't travel, but you can expend on something else.
Yes.
This year it's not there yet.
Mm.
So to that extent, I'm really paying a slightly more higher amount of taxes over here.
Mm-hmm.
And to a certain extent, I would say to compensate, government can look at enhancing this limit. It's
Absolutely.
been
So the
touched
government.
for a long time.
Yes, absolutely. It's been there untouched for a long time, and the government needs to relook at it, or perhaps diversify the kind of, things that are under Section 80. See if they could create some other sectors or segments as well to provide that relief. That also will be welcome. Apart from this, you did mention that, citizens are really facing the wrath of COVID-19 pandemic, be it in the way of increasing medical expenses or the lifestyle expenses that they have to incur because of COVID-19 pandemic. Apart from looking at the medical and the work from home allowance, what is the way in which the government could provide this kind of a relief, specifically catering to COVID-19? Could it be including COVID-19 as a specific disease that gets some deduction in some section, or what else could the government be really looking at in providing some kind of a tax relief on COVID?
So, very specifically, last year the government has come out with a little bit of relief, saying that if you're getting help from employers
Yeah.
or maybe charitable institutions, you don't have to kind of pay taxes on that. But there are people who are spending this out of their own pockets and may not get that support from employers at all. In that case, probably reintroducing some kind of a expenditure that we had earlier for
Hmm.
medical expenses, that could be one of the ways to look at it, especially in cases where the insurance just does not really cover the full cost.
Yes. Yes.
That is where, like, where it is hitting you, you should give a exemption to that, or a deduction. I mean, you can put in thresholds, absolutely no problem with that, but give that gesture. There are other countries in the world who have done similar kind of things. So
Yes.
something around that would really help, and also relook at the ATD insurance limits.
Okay, ATD insurance limits also be need to be looked at this point in time. You did talk about health insurance. Now we do, know that health insurance premiums in the last 1 year have significantly gone up for a whole host of people, which actually results in either a lower coverage than what they should be getting, or again, not exciting all the investors who've been keen in getting some health insurance for themselves just because of the health insurance premium expenses rising. What can the government be really looking at in reducing these kind of premiums for them to make it more affordable to get an insurance cover, since that is the need of the hour and the country is still underpenetrated when we talk about health insurance?
I think, see, before the government, I think the insurance companies have geared up. Okay.
Mm.
Earlier, if you notice, it was only hospitalization which was
Yeah,
covered
yeah,
broadly. So, but what we saw last year was like a totally different ballgame where beds were not available. People
yes,
had to make arrangements in their own house. There were, all kinds of facilities where your room was changed into a hospital ward, and people were treated in the homes.
yeah,
Uh, and many of them felt that that was far more better than being secluded in the hospital. And
right,
insurance companies have stepped it up to say, okay, all this is also covered.
yeah,
Yeah, you have to pay an additional insurance cost, that's fine, but all this is also covered. So in terms of coverage, if you have the money to pay the premiums, yes, it's all covered in that perspective. In terms of cost, it's really, really, really spiraling high. Obviously, I think it's a, what I would say, combination of demand and supply kind of things working out. Somewhere, if the IRDA could regulate this
yeah,
to put some sense into it, that could be fine. I mean, that would be good from a larger perspective. I think companies as employers are also gearing up, saying that, okay, for a full coverage, let me spend more, but let my employees be covered a bit better, and
yeah,
you have that comfort. So they are definitely putting in all kinds of efforts to make sure that employees are protected. But for the larger community, people who
yes,
may not be employed or who may be
yes.
self-employed, maybe the IRDA can step in and put some kind of a system in place.
Absolutely. So we've spoken a whole host on the medical expenses, the lifestyle expenses, COVID related expenses that the government should be really looking at this point in time to provide some relief to the citizens right there. Of course, the tax slabs have a very little room right there for the government to really look at this point in time. One more segment, which is extremely important and which has taken a hit due to COVID-19, is the education sector. And for a whole lot of families, education expense is a big part of their expenses. And because of COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen the job cuts happening. We've seen salaries getting deducted as well. But there is no incentive when you save for education per se. What can the government really look at this point in time to provide some kind of a healing touch to the common man when it comes to saving for education, so that parents and families are more keen to not have any hindrance in the education of their children due to the rising expenses?
So one of the things, Sakshi, is to provide a deduction to the employees, and it's already there actually in your ATC. But it's a narrow deduction which is available. It's only for tuition fees and
Yes.
things like that. It does not cover a whole host of things
Hmm.
which today are a necessity. I mean, nobody thought that laptops for students or kindergarten students also is a must. But
Yeah.
today it is, because otherwise you're nowhere, right?
Yes.
In that perspective, maybe relook at certain things, because we are in a different age altogether, and this is not
Absolutely.
going to go away. It's going to be staying forever. I mean, if you ask any parent, okay, would you want to go, put your child to school and jeopardize his health versus getting him educated, the choice is very clear for that parent, right?
Yes. Yes.
From that perspective, I think it's necessary for the government to take a whole new view of things. This work from home, or rather, not
Push for
really
online education.
push for online education, and revamp the Income Tax Act to make it applicable and make it versatile enough to cover all kinds of situations, like a work from
Yes.
anywhere. I will give you a very simple example. your HRA provisions, right? HRA provisions talk about, staying in a place where your home base is. But now today, there is the office base going to be. People are working from anywhere. So whether you get a HRA deduction for your house in your village and things like that, I don't know. I mean, there needs to be clarity. Otherwise, there's never going to be, clarity around this. There's going to be unlimited litigation, and all this comes after 2 years. So in hindsight, everybody is wiser, but we have to deal with the situation today, right? So
Absolutely.
take a very holistic view of things, because this is to stay. It's not a temporary issue that, okay, just for the benefit of it, I give some sops and then that's the end of it. No, every day the companies are coming up with the news alerts that they are looking at this long term. They don't want people in office. Nobody wants to take up that kind of a liability, right? So it is about a revamp, a versatile view of things.
Okay, so relook at the Income Tax Act to include the new ways of living and working going forward in the field of education as well, and work from home culture. That's something that's top of the radar at this point in time, and that's something that the government should be looking at. Anything else that comes on the top of your mind that the government will be introducing this time around in the budget, or doing some amendments right there?
Well, I'm not sure whether government will introduce or will talk about it, but I'm really, really hoping they do talk about, and that's the labor code. They do. I mean, in it's not a budget related item, or it's not an income tax item, but we do see even in the last couple of budgets, ma'am has been talking about this in her budget speech. There's a lot of anxiety around this, and it's long pending. It's about 2 years ago that the first labor code came into being. It was approved by the parliament, and then it's like a what I would say, a delay, then something comes in, then something goes back. I'm not saying for a moment that there is no work done at all. There's a tremendous amount of work that the government machinery has been up to, and it's difficult. It's very difficult. It's not a centered decision, because they have to take, get the states also to agree to everything, and it affects a larger population. It's even larger than the GST, because it affects labor, which is quite a sensitive topic in India. So, which is where it's not been easy, which is fine, but some guidance around that, because there's a lot of anxiety for the employees as well as the employees. It affects their retirals, right? So everybody is curious, everybody is worried, and so some kind of guidance over that is what we are really hoping for.
Absolutely. A guidance on the labor code, that's extremely essential at this point in time to give some more clarity on, a whole host of people who are employed and who come under the labor code as well. So that's going to be extremely important to watch out for too. Thank you so much, Aarti, for giving all these insights as to what to expect in the upcoming budget. Of course, the wish list is quite long as always, but there's always a limit to which what the government really provides. But this time around, two things on top of the radar: the expenses rising on the back of COVID-19, be it medical expenses or allowance on work from home and other online forms of incurring of expenses that people are doing on the back of COVID-19. Some guidance and some relief and healing touch from the government on this radar. So definitely, this is what the country really expects the government to do. We'll take your leave at this point in time, but we'll keep you updated with what this budget could actually bring and how will it really impact your wallet. So stay tuned with us on Business Today. Do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much for tuning in.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.